Alright, while we're on gaming here, back with another one. This is going to be the third part in our Super OP Frey series. So pretty much what we're going to be doing right now is looking at Prav's magic tree overall and going through some of the combos and using her abilities in live combat. So for now, really what I'm doing is just letting you get a good look at the skill tree right now. I haven't even started moving through the skills, but just looking at the base ones. So what we're going to do from here is just go ahead and back out of this skill menu. And then let's go ahead and open up the menus themselves that you would use in the game, right? So first we'll switch over to Prav's tree. And so here that's the support wheel and then the attack wheel for Prav's tree. So here in the wheel first up we have Nadre, which is a poison snake that pretty much floats around and attacks enemies in tandem. Poison is a very useful status effect to apply for, so definitely something to keep in mind. Then we have Broom, which allows you to go invisible when it hits, so it's pretty much a cloud that releases a fog that grants invisibility. Ablution is good for nightmare enemies because it removes the stamina lowering effect that they apply. So ablution is just something to use really quickly in the event of a big nightmare fight. Inundation is something that raises your critical hit rate. It's very good for any of the attacks. Really, any attack spell that you're going to use following Inundation is very, very powerful due to that raised critical hit rate. Alb, on the other hand, is used to actually block severe damage. And really, I shouldn't even say block. The better word is endure severe damage from attacks that come from unblockable or piercing, from a piercing basis. So any of your bigger monsters, any of your enemies, when you see that arrow that points towards you when an attack is coming at you, that's a piercing attack. Red glint attacks are unblockables. So if either of those attacks is being used against you, obviously if you're on higher difficulties, the amount of damage that you will take from those is very high and could result in a near one-hit kill. So Alb helps prevent that. Maelstrom is a very good ability for blocking projectiles, but it can also be used on downed enemies as well. It's pretty much just a water cyclone. So that's one that can be used to block almost any of the projectile attacks. E-Gray is one that I suggest moving into the center of an enemy group. It creates a water barrier that pushes those enemies away and gives you space to switch to another type of magic or also transition into some type of surge magic as well. That would be the use that I would have for E-Gray. E-Gray plus Cataract, for example, is a very good technique combo. Also, I haven't actually tried this, but I just thought of it just now. It may be a good idea to try combining Crucible and E-Gray. Open a Crucible, then jump into the center of that Crucible, and then use E-Gray to push the enemies actually into the sides of the Crucible, thereby damaging them. Oblet is a very interesting ability. The idea is to use a water spear to catch an enemy, and then you can throw an attack at and explode the spear, damaging the enemy inside and its surrounding enemies. The best way to use it, though, is to remember that it can only be used on enemies that are low and mid tier. You cannot use it against boss monsters. They will be immune to it, and they're too big to get caught in the spear anyway. Now let's go through the attack spells. So we have Chain Bolt, Fan Bolt, and then we have Cluster Bolt. So Fan Bolt is one that you can use to take out a wide array of enemies at once, and it passes through those enemies as well. Chain Bolt is one that's like a sniper rifle. Repeated hits to the same target do stack damage, and it's honestly a very, very powerful ability to use, but make sure that you employ lock on to ensure that you do not miss your targets when applying Chain Bolt. Otherwise it will turn out to be useless. It doesn't have a wide range, it's literally a pinpoint attack. Cluster Bolt is one where it's pretty much the opposite of Chain Bolt. You launch the attack into the air and then it rains bows or bolts down on the enemies. So just keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and just demonstrate each of these attacks. Fan Bolt is going to be first here. And so that's a 3-level or a 3rd-level Fan Bolt that we just released. So this right here going to wind up again and just demonstrate it one more time here. Now let's switch to Chain Bolt. So as you can see, it's very, very small strikes that line up on top of each other. And this is why if you're fighting an enemy, it is necessary to use lock on with Chain Bolt. And this is Cluster Bolt. So with the level 3, as you can see, it's raining icicles down onto wherever the enemies would be with the focus of Cluster Bolt. It's water at first level, I think it's like hail at second level, and then finally it's true icicles at the third level. Here I'm just kind of showing what happens if you jump. There's no difference in between the attacks and what they do when jumping. If you were using, let's say, the fire attack like Blast Spear, there is a change, but there's no change here when jumping for these. So now we're not going to actually demonstrate the support abilities. I'm just scrolling through them for you. We're going to go ahead and do that in an actual fight. So let's go back to the monument now and go ahead and kind of load up, and we'll try and use each ability in this one fight scenario. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. So this is one of those missions where you're protecting the townspeople. So we'll go ahead and engage. I've used Alb to just put up a defense, and I'm using Broom there to catch some of the enemies. I'm going to go ahead and switch to Chain Bolt, which, as you can see, it is possible to aim without lock-on, but lock-on, as you can see, very much improves the accuracy of your strikes. So that way, when enemies are moving around on the field, it's possible to follow each individual enemy and their attacks. So this is just me triggering Ablution. We really didn't need it, but as you can see, it increases stamina recovery. So it's very, very good for getting stamina back when you're moving around the battlefield. There are ways that you can put stuff on your gear that has that same effect, but this is a situation where we're just making it work with the spell itself. As you can see, that's how Fan Bolt works. It can pass through multiple enemies at once, and it hits in kind of a wide array. The problem with Fan Bolt is it does have a very limited area, in a sense, from a vertical aspect, right? So you have to make sure that when you attack, it's a wide area and the enemies are all lined up in front. We also just used a Cluster Bolt there to take out the remaining Myasis too. And the Myasis is the name of those lion things that we just fought. So here it looks like we have some Veronas coming in. So we're going to try and set them up and then kind of take advantage of their placement. So here we use E-Gray to just blow a few of them back and take out quite a few of the enemies at once. Then we're going to use the Cluster Bolt. But see, as you can see, the problem with Cluster Bolt is you have to make sure that the enemies are at least standing still. Or what you can also do, which I did not do here, is you can aim Cluster Bolt at your feet. And if you can trick the birds to coming in to attack you in that moment, you can aim Cluster Bolt at your feet, and then as they're coming to peck you, they will get taken out by the cluster. So here we're going to use Nidre to go ahead and poison a few of the enemies, and as you can see, that's an example of Oblet, where you can pretty much lock the enemies into that ball, and then after that exploding it to do damage. And here I'm just using Maelstrom to hit some of the enemies that are flying around and trying to attack me while we're fighting here on the battlefield. Of course, as we can see, these attacks are not as effective as some others would be, and that's because some of these enemies are just, quite frankly, not vulnerable to water or Prav's magic. So with that being said, in an instance like that, we would normally switch magic types, but I'm using this to completely explain and to show off Prav's magic, so we will not be switching. We'll only be using Prav's magic for this entire thing. So that is the up and away transition ability. Every magic skill tree has its own transition ability, so that's what we just used there, was up and away. These enemies are totally resistant, pretty much, or several of them are pretty resistant to Prav's magic. So right now I'm just kind of making ends meet and slowly but surely taking them down. So as you can see, there's a pretty high critical hit damage rate that's happening here. That's because I've used Inundation as well at this point to actually give me an increased level of critical hits. So let's go ahead and meet this monster out here. That's one of the bears, right? And so what we're doing here is just kind of using a combination of abilities. E-Gray to knock him back, then we used Chain Bolt to follow up, we're going to do the same thing here and go ahead and take out this bear as well. And so, of course, the other thing that I'm doing here is making sure to check the citizens or the townsfolk and make sure that the civilians still have all of their health. Because at the end of the day, when you're doing this type of mission, it's not just about protecting you, it's also about protecting the civilians, right? You cannot allow them to be killed. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't matter too much if they don't take too much damage. They can't be in critical health, I believe, but as long as they're not too whittled down, it's no big deal. But you definitely cannot allow yourself or you cannot allow them to wind up getting critically injured or taken out. So as we can see there, I use Broom to create that little cloud. Broom has limited effect if the enemies already know that you are there and are kind of already attacking you, per se. It's only really good if you can catch enemies in between attacks, because that way they don't follow up their attack pattern. They don't just magically lose sight of you if they're already in the process of launching an attack. So again, the reason why these enemies are enduring so well is because these are just not the best type of magic to attack them with, but we're making it work, right? So this is an example of Cataract. So something interesting about Cataract, which is the Prav Surge magic, is that it can freeze any enemy that's stuck in it. That's something very important to remember with that attack. It will freeze even a boss if it's caught in the middle of Cataract. So again, we're using Maelstrom a bit to just create that barrier in the center of the field. And there we go. We didn't manage to take out all of the enemies with this one. It would be very easy to do so if you were using lightning magic or something, or switching magic types. Very, very easy to take out all of them. But we still obviously made it way past the high score. I mean, 13,000 points more than the necessary score to get a full 5-star. So that takes care of the Monument of Wisdom. And so let's go ahead and just really quickly demonstrate one of the other abilities, or really the other two abilities in Prav's tree that are not combat focused. So here we have Float. So as you can see, Float is traversal focused and allows us to pretty much just kind of float through the air. So when combined with Zip and some of the other abilities, you can reach places that you normally wouldn't be able to. Now we have one more ability to show off, and that is Glide. Glide is the ability that allows Frey to be able to surf on water. The problem is we don't have a location close by that has water to really use that surfing ability on, right? So let's go ahead and just do that. We're going to use Float to just kind of plop ourselves down here in the water. And so as long as you're in flow state, this will automatically activate and you'll be able to do things. So that jump that I did there was just doing X double X. And as you could see there with the skip as well that came out of that, if you're about to fall into the water but you activate flow state again, then you'll just float further across. The glide ability will come back and you'll continue to be able to move forward. There is one more ability in the tree that is above here, and so those are the two, right? Float and glide right there. But there is one more ability which is called Fortify. And so Fortify is one that you'll have to actually go through the trouble of getting, in a sense, yourself. You're going to need to go ahead. This is it right here, where it allows you to use your crafting skills to increase the amount that items improve defense. This is very important for creating that Super Frey per se. But anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.